let's get started. Well, this is the meeting for the Northampton Conservation Commission, and we'll get started. The first thing I wanted to do is to ask if there are any changes to the minutes of the December 11th meeting. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes? No. Okay. No, Kevin? Nope. All right, so may I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So,
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Our first project is a notice of intent filed by Jim Harrity on behalf of the EBD Corporation, which I don't know what that stands for the construction of a mixed-use building, associated parking areas, driveways, sidewalks, utilities, landscaping, and stormwater management system. The project is proposed to take place in the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. Project location is 225 Nonotuck Street. So,
here are the comments from DEP for the next two projects. This project and the next one.
all right.
Oh, yeah, sure. So this project is a buffer zone project, so DEP really doesn't put together much of a recommendation or even review. Mostly they just review projects that are in resource areas.
Okay, so look at those. All right, you're Mr. Harrity.
Yes. This, as mentioned, this is at 225 Nonotuck Street in Florence. And presently there's an existing single-family home in front of the lot, about a half-acre lot. It's in the SI zoning district. And what we're proposing to do is to convert it from single-family use now to mixed use. This will be a mixed-use project. The front building will be the David Ruggles Center for Early Florence History and Underground Railroad Studies. And the proposed building in back will be for lived workspace. It's about a 3,000 square foot footprint, 6,000 square feet altogether, with a living on the top floor with a workspace on the lower floor. Meets all zoning requirements. It's going to require site plan approval only. No special permit is needed. In the back here we have, this would be the tree-lined area which begins the slope. There's a pretty decent slope in the back of the lot. The rest of it is all grass area. We're proposing 2 parking areas in front here next to the existing building. It was flagged for wetlands, and you can see the flags on the map here. And then we have the 10-foot buffer. That's right there. And the structure is outside of the 10-foot buffer, and I believe that the Northampton allows up to 10 feet in the SI zoning district. That's about it on that. Do you have any questions?
It's 4 units that you're putting in there.
3 in the back, and then 1 in front. We'll make it 4. And it's mixed use.
So 4 residential units?
This will be the David Ruggles Center,
Right.
and then 3 live workspaces in back, so 3
Okay.
units in back. And live workspaces, essentially you can live on the 2nd floor, and you have a workspace on the 1st floor. And what we're hoping to do is to kind of get some, the artisans in the area that would come in and live there and have their shop down below. I think there might be 1 or 2 other live workspaces that are just single, detached units. But this would be, I think, the first project in Northampton to do live workspace.
Where is stormwater from the parking lots going to be directed?
We have a drainage system that picks up here, goes into here, goes to here, and there's a drain pipe that comes on the corner of my property here,
Okay,
and that goes out into the catch basin.
okay.
And which has been, DPW has looked it over. They have a couple of minor issues that we have to contend with, but they pretty much agree with all the design, all of that.
Okay, so basically all the parking lot surfaces are going to be directed toward the street.
Yeah,
To
and
existing catch basins.
to give more information than asked for, which is not always a wise idea, but essentially what we're doing is half of the roof area will be flowing to the back, and this half will be flowing to the front, which will all go here.
Right.
And so the increase, which really is negligible in terms of what the sheet flow will be, that'll be going back to this grass area and back here. It'll be, the sheet flow coming off the roof will come down, but it's not, we're taking this flow away, and so the calculations weren't even, you couldn't even do them on the computer, they were negligible.
So the DPW's concerns, they have two concerns. One is that this pipe on the eastern side here may be too deep. That it's actually perforated pipe and it may be below groundwater, so it may actually be draining groundwater at the site. That was one thing that, and that could be dealt with here or at planning board. And then the second part was, what was the second thing? Total suspended solid removal. There's really no mechanism to remove total suspended solids. So that could be done with some sort of pre-treatment on this detention area up here.
And actually, so the comment, because I just got those comments back, and I didn't see that one. But that's not that deep. I don't know why they would say that. I didn't see that on the comment, but
Okay.
that one's not. That's not that deep. It's only 18 inches or something like that. That's the top of that pipe. I think is like 18 inches. So I don't know. I don't know why that. The other one would be, the infiltration rate and the solids, and I just spoke to our engineer who was just coming back from Rhode Island, so he can't make it. And again, the infiltration rate was negligible on a half-acre lot here. In terms of the state standards and everything else like that, it was again, it's minor. In the big picture, it's almost doesn't even qualify for storm water.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there'll be any infiltration in this at all. But you're right. It's a small amount of impervious area. So, are you really losing that much infiltration in this site? Probably not. But probably the groundwater issue is a bigger issue. If you're draining groundwater, then you're changing the hydrology of the whole site. So
if it says that the contour is 102, if it's 18 inches below, that means it's 100 and a half, and the wetland is 100. And then that's just the top of the pipe. So your pipe, how big is the pipe?
It's 4-inch perforated pipe.
Is it 4-inch?
Yes, but the 100 is the grade. That's your grade where the wetland starts, and I think they're talking about the groundwater. And I don't know what we did some soil, and I believe that the groundwater is a few feet down, from what I understand.
No, it can't be because.
We were out there
It can't be.
2 years ago.
Well, I know that that's the grade. I'm just saying that if you have 102 and you're a foot and a half down, so then you're at 100 and a half, and your pipe is somewhere. Yeah. I mean, it may not affect it. I don't know. It's just I don't know why they would say that either.
Right, well, part of the wetland is at 102,
But part of it is
at
that.
103 actually on the other side,
Oh yeah, right.
The high side is
Eyesight.
the high side.
102, which is
So it could potentially.
So the groundwater fluctuates somewhere in there, and at some points the groundwater is at
100.
the grade level, and sometimes maybe it's lower. I think the worry is the perforated pipe is going to potentially drain it. So maybe the answer is not to have a perforated pipe. In that, so because you're not getting infiltration in anyway, perforated pipe really has no value. So maybe the answer is a solid pipe at whatever the inlet here is, at your little detention area. Maybe that's the answer. I think that can be solved with DPW before or it can be a condition at least that you guys could add that says you can't drain groundwater, and you just basically leave it up to him based on this system.
another question would be about the sides of the building that are facing uphill toward the wetland. Is there going to be easy access? Will be there access for the residents to that backyard, to what they will consider their backyard, that hillside? I would imagine.
Or the flat before the hillside.
Yeah. And to the flat, basically to the wetlands. Will there be?
Well, each unit will need two means of egress. We'll have a means of egress over here, another one here, and then this one here would probably could be, hasn't been, we haven't actually nailed down our footprint inside yet.
And have you thought about how you're going to designate the wetland boundary?
We wanted to keep it grass, because it's grass now, and there won't be any new construction going on there. That'll be restricted in your conditions, and we're going to keep this as a grass area in back.
Well, the 10-foot should be in the disturb zone then, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's.
So there shouldn't be grass. It should be natural vegetation.
Yeah, I would think so. And at the very least, the
Or shrub.
wetland area should be allowed to revegetate.
Yeah.
We've had serious problems with grass areas, or even the beginnings of grass areas on wetland boundaries. They just don't tend to be respected by the people who live near or around them. So, my preference would be for basically allow that to naturally vegetate. I mean, you've got some buffer here between the wetland buffer and the building, which you'll mow for aesthetics, but
That's 2 feet.
yeah, right. Well,
Right. So
and that's,
according,
if you
according
go
to
right
the
against the
ordinance, that's a no disturb area.
Yeah.
It can't be.
you can't mow it. No.
But isn't it existing conditions, and wouldn't that be grandfathered in where I could still maintain that? The flow is negligible, so we're not increasing any flow, and it's the existing conditions. And I believe that if it hasn't been done that, which this has been like that for years, I believe that we have a right to keep that as a grass area.
If you were to keep the building as it is,
Yeah.
or to work on your existing building, but to put in a new building, you're now being under purview of the new wetlands ordinance.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that 10-foot is the minimum, but obviously the wetlands are being affected by building within 100 feet, which is the jurisdictional limit. And I think in allowing the building of the new structure, there's got to be an improvement in terms of, I would say, for speaking for myself, there's got to be an improvement for what, the wetlands are currently degraded, so.
Marginal wetland now anyway.
That's because it's been degraded by human impact. If you let it revegetate, in a short amount of time, it may not be a marginal wetland. If you continue to mow it, it will remain so.
Well, it's isolated and marginal, and I hear you what you're saying. Maybe we can come up with something, we can figure something out on that. But, maybe we'd like to hear some other comments on that.
Well, the other dimension of that do not disturb, no disturb zone is that all work has to be on the upland side as well.
Right.
Not just all building,
Right.
but the construction equipment and all that sort of thing. That's within 2 feet of the edge. That's just pouring foundation and slab, and whatever you do is going to be, I think, pretty difficult to not encroach.
It can be tight, it can be done. We understand that it's going to be tight.
Sue, Lisa, do you have any comments?
Well, it's very tight. And the 10-foot, I would like to see definitely vegetated, it's gonna have to be. I mean, this is why we're asking, to allow you to come to 10 feet, we wanna see some improvement. And otherwise, why would we allow it?
This is also a project. I have some other people here with me. This is a project that has gained some pretty good, it's taken on a little bit of life of its own. It's been approved by the CPA for some money, so we've got the backing of the Community Preservation Committee. The Historic Commission has also is in favor of this. One of the reasons why we're doing this is because it benefits the city. This is a historic preservation project, and so there is a lot of benefit that is coming out of this. And so I understand your concerns with the with the land and back, but there are also some other very tangible benefits that are being gained by doing this project versus another project, that would have just been industrial use.
So, should we hear from some other people?
Yes, absolutely.
Is there anyone here who would like to comment about this project?
Could we see the chart, please?
Sure.
So here's the house, here's Nonotuck Street, here's the house, here's the proposed building, and this is the area in back.
The dark green is a steep hillside, and the lighter green is...
This is the wooded area.
Yeah.
I'm the architect that's doing pro bono work. I'm on the Historic Commission also. I'm Tris Metcalf. I guess like to comment that the concept architecturally is that the house here is an historic house, is an important sort of symbol for the history of Old Florence. In fact, this is right on the center of Old Florence Village. There's a common across here, so I should say it this way. What the structure in back is supposed to be is a barn. It looked like a barn. We did great drawings of it, but there's barn doors, and it's styled like an old barn, and it's massed like an old barn. And but the land behind isn't. There's no real function for the land in back. So I mean, the fact that it's been a lawn doesn't have to stay a lawn. I guess the only concern would be, and I think what Jim might be thinking is, to be able to want plants growing right up against the building because it's bad for the building. So you'd want to be able to at least, maintain the surface of the building. There's, and again, there's exits here, so you have to have a path. You wouldn't want the jungle or whatever you say, bushes, but I think you'd want to have, the building would need the right to, just keep the surface dry, to building. As far as the use of the site, there's no real, it's just a lawn that doesn't have to be a lawn, I guess, but, so I just, want to make that point. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Can I clarify just one thing, Tris? Is that the wetlands ordinance doesn't allow for discretion as to what happens in that 10-foot.
Yeah.
It says that that's a no disturb,
Okay.
so that trees can't be cut, lawn can't be mowed, and the commission really has no say over whether yes or no it can happen.
Okay.
The ordinance states strictly it's no disturb.
Right. What about branches that would grow over the 10-foot, like against the building?
Right.
Winds and brushing against.
That's why some of the members have thought that it might be a little close. That's the problem. There's
Again, it's been on lawn for a long time, and so what would grow back, I think it was just, the only issue would be that, branches wouldn't be rubbing on the building. You'd be able to
Right.
tone it, when it crosses the 10-foot line or something.
I wouldn't see a problem with stuff that crosses the line, but I think just as Mr. Harry was describing that the access, one of the access for the center units would
Well, it's
be
just a fire exit, it's not a entrance.
right. But I think that even the fire marshal or fire chief would have a problem if again we can't let you within that 10-foot buffer.
Yeah.
And so if the vegetation is going over and fire chief is there doing inspection and says this is not adequate emergency
Egress.
So just that's something to think about. That's not within our jurisdiction, but
Well, the door would swing in like a residential door,
Right.
so certainly somebody could get out. I mean, if there was a trunk of a tree growing right there, you could move the door.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's nothing going on there, is what I guess I'm
Right.
saying. Except, the only tiny little issue is that, the maintenance of the building.
Right.
Which, actually, we're planning on using fiber cement, which holds paint like asbestos does.
Right.
So it's probably very rarely ever even going to be there painting it.
but that is something to think about in the future. Is that any kind of scaffolding, staging,
Yeah, I wouldn't need it.
would be have to stay outside that zone.
Yeah.
And in terms of preventing the jungle from growing, planting of some native species where what the habit of the mature bush would be, would prevent the jungle from popping up there.
Oh,
It would both improve the wetlands and
Okay. So you can make,
be better than
And that barrier that we're talking about has to keep the residents from encroaching on that too. They can't think, gee, we can plant a garden or something back here.
Yeah.
So we want a visual reminder that says, this is off limits.
yeah. So it'd be easy to do, because you just say that whole side of the building is off limits, and they don't need to go there, and, it's like a parkland or whatever.
I think Sue was saying
Off limits for-
that you need something that's
You need
visible.
something visible.
Because if people have guests, there needs to be some kind of signage there
Sign,
saying,
oh.
Or if the units
can't
turn
access
over
this
and they're
area.
sold,
Okay.
And I think for our discussions, right now we are out of the 10-foot buffer zone, clearly out of the 10-foot buffer zone, and you're gonna not let us in there, and so we just need to do that.
Yeah. So sign on the ends when you walk around.
I think the people that are going to be moving in there too are going to be very much appreciative of the wetlands preservation. They're not going to be out there to.
Would you please state your name?
My name is Craig Delapenna. I'm a member of the Historic Commission and the Community Preservation Committee. And I'm helping to make sure this project goes forward.
This was one of the interesting things about this is, it's a collaborative development, and not in the sense that like I put a team together and go out and come up with this design, but more in terms of collaborative development as a concept where seemingly disparate interest groups get together and come together and come up with a project. And these were the guys that did a lot of heavy lifting on that project. And as I mentioned, it's a collaboration with the city entity that we're doing here.
I would wonder whether any commission members or you, Bruce, in terms of discretionarily letting the construction going between the 50 and the 10 feet, whether requiring the applicant to do any kind of restoration or planting. I think there's precedent for that in terms of, and again, basically planting native wetland species within the grass, within the site, within the grass area as a restoration, which again would probably benefit from the residents' perspective. It would not just go to all invasives. It wouldn't go to bittersweet and invasives. It might make it more attractive when they look out their windows across that.
Would the Conservation Commission be willing to come up with a list of plants and provide technical expertise? Because a lot of this stuff in the background to construct this is being done pro bono.
Right.
And we'd appreciate any kind of technical assistance that could be brought forward that would be making the project better.
Bruce, we have a list of. I mean, I know from being at a project, actually, this was a project that the city did, and it was conservation land where there were islands of plants. Specific list. So, unfortunately, the resident eventually cut them all down to make a lawn, but. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lisa Maloney. I just had a question. Is the barn abutting right up to the 10-foot buffer?
Barn.
The back building, is that going right to the
Everything go off. Here's the buffer line right there.
Probably about
Black line.
At the uphill, it looks like it's.
It looks like it touches at one
Touching.
end.
Yes.
It's
And
like
there's a couple of feet away most of
yeah,
the.
it's like about 10 inches away in the back. But the ordinance will have us keep out of the buffer zone, and we have to stay out of it. If it becomes unmanageable in terms of construction, there's other things we can do in terms of lengthening this side over here. There's some things we can do outside the buffer zone to make that more manageable and back if it becomes a problem for us.
Well, how about this area right here where it's really close? Looking at maintenance, long-term maintenance.
Well, that's what I was saying. If it becomes an issue for us, which it may, then we just extend this here, we shorten this here.
No, I know, but that doesn't sound. When you look at any building, somewhere, someone puts their bike back there. They put their trash cans back there. They let their dog out or whatever, cats out. You got a boat you want to store, it sits back behind. I don't know. It's just a. You can't have an egress and not have an access way, right? You have to have an access way because people have to be able to walk out or whatever. Anyway, yes, sir.
One of the interesting things about this development is the condominium. And the condominium documents will specify that there can be none of the activities and occurrences that you've just described should be in the condo docs then. In the condo documents, the association that will be formed once this thing gets built out, they will defend those conditions. As I said, the people that are going to be moving here will be people who appreciate the wetlands and all that it provides. And there will be none of the bad activities you mentioned.
How do you know?
How do I know?
Yeah, how do you know?
Condominiums defend their condominium documents.
But what you're saying is, it's very subjective, and you could say that on any project that you do.
It's true. It's just that
There isn't a lot of flex on
there
it.
isn't a lot of flexibility here. You're absolutely right, Mr. Harrity, but there's just not a lot of flexibility. I just wonder if. Yeah. Okay. Yes, you have to state your name.
Yeah, my name is Matt McDonough, and we are abutters of this project. We own the former Pro Brush property, and we're going to be owning the land right next to this. So we have
Which side, the parking lot? That open
the
space?
yeah,
Okay.
the Star Center between there.
That's it.
In any event, I'm in support of this project, and I've been aware of it, of the Rumble Center for a while. But just thinking about it, I appreciate that the the commission may have a lack of latitude because of the 10 foot, but the reality is it's a lawn today. Would it be reasonable to suggest that 10 foot from the building, leaving aside the other 10 foot for the moment, 10 foot from the building to be a grass swale, or a piece of grass, if you will, that would allow access and, you know, you could walk around the property, and then from that point out, would revert to wetland with wetland species, which today is a lawn. So really, it's not as if it's encroaching on a vegetated wetland in the classic sense. It's a lawn today. In 3 years or 2 years, it would revert to a more traditional, or more natural, or rustic way. So I think it's reasonable that if, you know, they build the building where it is and then have a belt, if you will, that is today grass, remain grass, and that point out with signage. We've all seen these signs in sometimes in golf courses and other places where, you know, if your ball goes in there, don't, you know, it's a regulated wetland, that kind of thing. And this would be a similar situation. But my thought is, you know, I'm not sure that the regs contemplate something that is a lawn reverting back. And I think that maybe looking at it, again, I don't have a horse in the race, but looking at it just from a developer's point of view, it seems to me that would be reasonable. And I think, because in a year from now, or a year after this project's done, the wetland will have regenerated, and it's been a mowed lawn for 50 years maybe.
So are you suggesting a 20-foot buffer?
No, I guess what I'm suggesting is that this is all grass today. You know, as a practical matter, you're not going to have, as the architect said, you're not going to have, you know, unkempt vegetation up to the foundation. So stipulate that will be an allowed band, and then that point forward, the wetlands the wetland vegetation would regenerate.
But if we stipulate that ban, he's gotta move the building.
Yeah, we can't
And he
do it.
can't go over
Yeah.
a setback.
I mean, if the building is built where it is,
Right.
We can't do
this
that.
commission has no discretion, no power to affect what you just described.
Right.
I mean, even if we wanted to, we can't. I mean, this is the way the city's ordinance is written. We have no discretion to allow work within that 10-foot zone. None.
In theory,
And also, it looks like a lawn, but it's a wetland.
like I said, but in
It's a
theory,
wetland.
if this wasn't built and the person in that house could mow that lawn for the
And
next
it's a
50 years,
grandfathered in, right.
so I just
But
my
this is a new
understanding.
project.
But
It
that
looks
is
like a
actually,
lawn, but it's a wetland.
it's a buffer to the
And-
wetland.
And we have a 10-foot buffer that we cannot do, there's no disturb, nothing can be done there. That's in the ordinance, that's the way it's written, it's tight. And we have real concerns about how close this building is to that edge.
Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Strymer, I'm with the David Ruggles Center. I just wondered, who decides where that line is? If it's not your discretion, it's the environmental, is it a state group that decides the wetlands?
No, it's 10 foot.
The applicant hired a wetlands scientist who went out and identified the wetland through soils because it is lawn, you can't identify it through vegetation. So through soils, they identified it as here is the historic wetland, if you will. And then the commission
And the
and
edge of that
staff
is flagged.
went out and we kind of verified that is indeed where the wetland ends or begins. So it's I think the commission is confirming this because they did do a site visit and they did say yes, the wetland scientist that was hired did do the proper soils work, and so from that point, that's where the 10 feet off of that gets basically delineated and placed as a 10-foot no disturb from that point forward.
You have a question, is it a local ordinance, that 10 feet you can't do anything, or is this a federal or national wetland?
City.
So, right, the state Wetlands Protection Act puts a 100-foot buffer on wetlands,
Okay,
and it says that the commission has discretion to allow work within that 100 feet. The
the
local
last 10, you can't go.
The local ordinance
zoning
says in this zone of the city, which is an industrial zone, that the committee may allow work up to 10 feet, but no closer. So they still have discretion from 100 feet to 10 feet in the zone.
Well, that's 10 is a national regulation.
No.
State.
No, it's
It's
our
local.
local ordinance, city
We can make this easy.
in that
We're outside the buffer. If I have to do something on the design here to increase that, so that's not the issue. The issue is what do we do with this inside from the buffer in? Right, so we need to figure out a way to make a benefit. So right now the city's gaining a historic preservation project, and the existing conditions right now, somebody could go back there and they could put their boat back there, they could put their bike back there, they could put their log pile back there, they could do whatever they want right now back there, except build something in there. So the benefit is not only going to be cultural, but we can also get a benefit to increase the dignity of that wetland. And I'm open to that. But how would we do that? And maybe we could work something out where it's not so detrimental on the house, but it also benefits the wetland also, so that everybody gains. Because it will be a net gain for the wetland back there. Even if we just plant a couple of species, it's already a net gain.
Right.
So you're asking the commission how many feet they'd be comfortable allowing a development from the actual limit of disturbance line?
If it's in your purview, so what I and Matt, being the pragmatic developer that he is, stole my thunder, because my compromise is going to be pretty much what he said was, but not even, I was going to even bring it back. There's that drainage ditch right here,
Right.
and if we did from right back here all the way over, just let that grow whatever way we want it to grow. Then we could do some plantings here that might be, and then as we move forward, just get less dense as we move forward.
So, what were we gonna say?
Oh, I was just going to say that some upland species as sort of a natural delineator of the wetland within that 10-foot. I would imagine that you would plant densely enough shrub species, basically just outside the flagging of the wetland in the 10-foot buffer, that's going to improve the appearance as it grows back, provide habitat for wildlife, and also prevent incursions into the wetland as the wetland revegetates. I think what you're hearing from a lot of the commissioners who have seen this is that if residents do go back into that area inside the 10-foot buffer, if they do cut, then it's going to become an enforcement action with fines of $300 a day, continuing every day at $300.
Exactly, and probably some repercussions for the condo association also.
Right. So none of us want those. I think that what we're all expressing is having seen the best of intentions go awry after projects have been built right on top. Obviously, when you build right on top of the buffer zone, you have mistakes carry into the buffer zone. People leave stuff outside the back of the building, or maybe a worker decides that he needs to get better access and cuts some brush away. Those mistakes then are violating the wetlands ordinance. So anything you can do in terms of tweaking the design to still get the square footage out of the building that you need for the residents, but allow basically protecting yourself down the line from enforcement actions is to the benefit of them.
If you condition it, on acceptance of the plan that we'll submit, I'll submit to Bruce, based on those parameters, that I'm fine with that.
I think we should look at.
I think we should see a plan.
Yeah.
I think that's
So why can't the building be moved just a bit, with the understanding that the distance between the 10-foot buffer and the new building line would be, just as he described, a maintained area. grass or park pathway or whatever. I'm not gonna, you don't have to redesign it. You don't have to give me an answer, but that's what I'm thinking, that why can't the building be pushed back?
As the architect, I can say that there's no way you can move the building, you have to make the building smaller.
That's right.
Which
Well,
cuts,
yeah.
you can't, the building's already, close enough to the other building and so forth, so it would just be a smaller building, which then basically, the units are pretty small already, so I don't know how that hurts the economics of it.
Well, this was not the original plan. The original plan was for an industrial building to go in there. And I can tweak this. But what we did was we went backwards on this. We say, okay, I've been working on this model that I hope to implement somewhere in the future, which is using real estate development tools that benefit the common good. And so this actually started to fit into this model, and I said, all right, how can we do this and make this work? And essentially, what it does is, instead of your outcomes are not so much economic, but your determined outcomes are what is the good. And this project here would probably not have taken on any legs at all with me if I didn't think that Steve's idea was a very good one. And so I think that said, that's why we did it. And so from an economic perspective, what we did is we say, okay, how can we make this work now? If we could have gotten 6 units in there, then this building probably would have been done for nothing. But we couldn't do that, so we had to figure out how can we get this to work. And so we backed into things rather than saying, okay, give me X amount of money for this. So that's how we back into it. So there is some issues with the size of but I think I don't think we're far off here. There are some things we can do that I think that we can get away from it. But I think what your jurisdiction is to make sure that we stay out of the 10-foot buffer. And we can do that. And we show that we're doing that. If we need to tweak it a little bit, we can do that. I would request that you approve it because there is the clock is ticking on this. And I would request that if you have some issues with the plantings back there, that if you could approve it based on the approval of the plan, which I can bring back for everybody's review. But it would be nice to have your approval if it's coming, just so that it keeps the project moving forward. Because I was hoping to have this in late November, but I don't know how that goes. It doesn't always go that way.
Okay. Any other comments from?
Just real quick,
Yes, sir.
back up a quick, that the condominium documents could say that nobody can put any boats or anything in it, so that it's an enforcement issue within the condominium association. No one can put anything there, so you can't go there. And the only reason you ever go there is if it's a fire exit, you need to get out that door.
So would the owner be acceptable to condominium covenants that said an annual report would be submitted, that there's no encroachment, and if that annual report, if it were not submitted, then the commission would do it and charge the condominium association for that?
Steve, you paying attention?
Yeah, I'm all right, so we're working on the condo docs now.
Okay. Yeah, we've done that before, where we have something like a detention basin that says you have to maintain a detention basin. If you don't, the city will maintain it and we'll send you a bill.
And we'll have the lawyer who's working on getting it done, talk to you about language. He needs to.
Is that something the commission?
Yeah.
I mean, assuming this, however it goes forward, that's seems to be reasonable.
But, all right, so do we want to ask Mr. Harrity to move the line or not? That's
Remove the edge of the building.
move the edge of the building.
Well, you said you could do it.
Well, I
You would
can,
tweak
but
that.
I'm outside the buffer now.
I know,
Not that-
I know,
Up
you
here,
are,
slope.
but practically speaking, it's just a matter of,
Well, my concern with that would be, you know, it's kind of vague.
well, I know, and that's why I wanna ask the other commission members, should we give him an acceptable distance? Or-
Like for a walkway around the building?
Yeah. I mean, right now,
3 feet.
You're bumping up against the 20-foot setback on the east side, no?
Well, 15 foot on the side, yes, on the east and west, it's 15-foot buffer. I can do that, if you say I need to be 3 feet away from the line.
well, you're 3 feet now, you're
No,
about 2.5,
I don't,
at
The
least down
scale,
here.
right,
It
it looks
looks like 2 feet of designated.
I get
But-
2 feet,
yeah, 3 feet is the common egress.
that's a 24-foot building. And you meet the setback currently
Right.
from this building, which is 4 feet, but it should probably be, I think it's 5. But somewhere in there, you're close to meeting that setback from the two buildings. Is that right?
Yes, and the side setbacks were okay.
Side setback.
This is close to,
15 feet, right, side?
yes.
But I was
You know,
thinking of 15 feet from the wetland boundary.
Right.
That would be, then you know that 5 feet would be mowed and maintained and may have a path in it.
As a practical matter, the line of work or the limit of work line is usually a project like this designated by large stones. How would you? But that's within the building footprint, though. So it's
That's so what I want to know is, you want to give him some guidelines so he doesn't, he's right, it's vague. Because it's up to our jurisdiction, so I want to give him some guidelines to go on. It doesn't even necessarily, to me, it doesn't even have to be the same distance all the way around. You know, but the point is that practically speaking, they're going to be walking in this no disturb zone. They have to. And it may not be this year, it may not be next year, but it'll be 15 years from now or 20 years from now. And it's a great idea to do plantings. I think that could be very nicely done, could enhance the, I mean, you should put windows out on that side, but anyway, so I just want to know, because we've got to get going.
Right.
Yeah.
So we either have to continue it,
Well, it
or we
seems
have
like-
to give them some guidelines so you can,
3 feet, I think, is reasonable. That works. It's 3 feet is a common width for an egress. Plantings at the buffer line.
And it wouldn't have to go to that rear, it could just go the one direction, toward the east.
You can do it all the way around, 3 feet off the line everywhere. It's not a problem.
Sue, Lisa.
Well, it would make it better for the residents, I
Yeah.
think, you know.
And with that, I still think it's a big net benefit to that wetland back there. Because this whole area now is gonna be grown in, and it's gonna be a much better wetland when all's said and done.
I agree that having a defined, maintained area next to the building can actually improve the integrity of the boundary. And say, okay, beyond this point is not okay. I worry that 3 feet is, barely enough.
Well, it's maintenance.
It'll be.
Yeah, it's
it'll be.
maintenance.
I mean, is this a building wooden structure, what's the?
It doesn't matter
So it's
because
gonna be painted?
they'll have to do something, somewhere.
Well, if it was brick or something.
Fiber cement siding holds paint a real long time, so it's.
No vinyl. It's,
Yeah.
holds for 20 years.
Anyway. I guess I would suggest maybe 3 feet, but then 5 feet on the back or something like this back part.
Now, here's an interesting thought though, is when you're doing your ordinance said 10 feet. Outside the buffer, all structures are 10 feet outside. So now do you mean the structures need to be 15 feet, but your disturbed area is now 10 feet? So I think you have the leeway to approve this as is, but, we're willing to, to move that off. We can move it off. I mean, that's not the big deal.
Guess I'd caution you to interpret the ordinance, because if you were really to say the ordinance states that the commission may allow work up to 10 feet with certain waivers that improve the wetland, and
It's not that 10 feet is the intended limit, it's
Well,
the extreme of what
well,
we
yeah,
can.
extreme.
So is this the first one before you with the 10-foot in the SI zoning district? So it will probably come up again. Uh, 3 feet doesn't work?
Well, it's 3 feet now, almost. I mean, it's practically 3 feet.
It's actually not, it's a little under 2, I think.
Yeah, okay. So, we're not gonna gain it all
But what do you want?
Well, you said 5
I said 5 here,
along the back, it could be 3
there, or
over.
whatever, if that made it easier for them. I don't know.
Is that
Just
realistic?
trying to make it, I don't know, what do you guys think? You got it?
I would support a 5-foot buffer along the portion of the building where there will be egress, and then 3 feet as it turns and heads up the slope, just to allow for a minimum distance for maintenance and also for construction. So that will definitely keep that outside the 10 feet or do.
This is a hard call. I
It's
mean,
hard.
sure, we could approve this exactly what it is, but the minute somebody puts a ladder up to paint the side of the building, there's an enforcement order. You know, it's, I don't know.
But
I'm
he's
not sure it
got
has
good,
to
he's
come
got
from
good
us.
points about
I'm sure
community
it has
preservation,
more
or I
or
mean,
less has to come from, okay, how much room do we need to do maintenance on a building? How much room do we need to do, I don't know. Depends on the building.
alright.
I'm not sure it's our call.
Well,
It's actually, that's maintenance would be
I
the
mean, we can-
association, there's a 5-foot
We can
space
pick
between
any-
there, and
any-
they have to stay out. If they have to paint it, they
Pick
gotta
anything
figure a
we
way out
want.
to do that. Like, pump jacks, 1 inch is fine, that's 2 feet off the building.
alright, so we need to move on. So I think we got the gist of it. There aren't any other comments. So we either need to continue this, if you need to think about it more, or we need to.
No, we can pick any number,
I
you
know,
know?
I know.
It's the minute you see something outside that, that's when it is.
Or we need to have a motion to give some guidance, go somewhere.
Well, and your interest is to receive whatever approval from the commission with conditions now, rather than to come back with revisions.
Are you comfortable doing that? I don't like that. I don't like it.
I'm not comfortable
It
as
has nothing
staff
to do with
making
you,
a
Mr.
decision.
Harry.
I understand.
It all is about, it's burned us in the past.
So,
Right.
Just a plan, we'll put you on the schedule in 2 weeks, and,
And I think we can provide guidance.
Yeah, if we give
I
you
at
guidance.
least- I at least could support the
so I
the
just.
proposal, the 5-foot proposal in the back, 3 at the corner, and restoration of wetland with indigenous species. And I guess we have to also think about whether that perforated pipe should be solid. There might be another condition or two.
So here's what I have, that there would, the revised plan would show a planting plan, and we can help you with that.
Yeah, we can help with that.
That you show that you're not draining groundwater. That you show markers at the boundary, the 10-foot.
What kind?
And what kind of
I don't know,
markers?
in the past, we've gone with large boulders.
I know, but does that make sense here?
Less so.
Less so.
Maybe granite bollards or something like that. 6x6 bollards at 18 inches, so at least
some durable.
Somebody mowing the lawn will know where that is to
Right.
stop mowing.
Could he maybe incorporate lighting or something with it to make it?
Sure, we've done
so
it
it's
before
nice,
with
so it's-
birdhouses.
Yeah.
Granite bollards with
But no
birdhouses on
fences.
top, or I'm against fencing personally because it stops small animals from
All right,
moving.
keep going.
So markers, they show you removing the total suspended solids. I think Aaron can do that, that's pretty easy. With some sort of forebay or something like that, or whatever it might be,
Right.
structural, non-structural. That the covenants include an annual report to the commission, basically showing that there's no encroachment. And the plans show the project being however many feet from the wetland you decide on, which I guess that's the fine point, I guess.
And so my final comment would be is, I think those are all manageable. And, you know, Edwin, Bruce, right off the list, they're actually pretty unsophisticated conditions. It's an unsophisticated project, it's a half acre, it's a no-brainer to do from a pragmatic perspective. The changes that you want to make are easy, and given the fact that that this was a collaborative development, and I'm leaving a lot on the table in terms of my economic model to work with the city to do this. I would just ask that approve it with conditions, because there are some pretty big obstacles that I'll have to contend with, that we'll all have to contend with, that we move forward.
And the 2 weeks really makes that much difference?
It does, and I'll have to, it gets complicated, but my life is complicated right now.
Bruce, did you want to comment on it?
I would be comfortable accepting a plan
Because you're the one who's
and signing
gonna do
off on it, but I would want more from the commission tonight on a planting plan. More specifics on drainage, and I can probably give those. The markers I think we've decided on. The TSS removal, I'd want to make sure that everybody in this room understands that before we leave. And the covenants, as long as we have some basic wording. I think the number of feet from the wetland, that's pretty simple. But the rest of it, I think I want to be absolutely clear before we leave that when I put my initials on something and it comes back to the commission as approved, that you all...
Bruce who?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not something we typically do, is allow staff to approve a plan after the fact.
And I think, I'm a small timer and I've been here before. I have a track record of taking care of things. May have gone back on occasion, but I've gone back in a heartbeat. Bruce says, hey, Jim, you got to take care of this, and I'm there and I do it. So I think I've got a track record of showing that I can follow direction.
If you're okay with the sign off, just to ask for us, I'd be okay with going, but it seems like a poor precedent.
So it's an unprecedented project.
No, it has not, it's got to be. All right, so we can even do the conditions, motion for the conditions only, and motions whether he has to come back, if you want to do that. I don't want to tie the motion, the conditions with the whether he has to come back.
You want to take a straw vote on whether or not
Jim, how long is it
Committee
to
would
get
allow
the
him
new plan
to-
together?
the committee would accept it tonight. Please.
Yeah.
I just asked him how long it would take.
Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, I need a motion. I can't have a vote.
I don't feel comfortable putting this all on Bruce's shoulders.
So you want a motion to continue?
Yeah.
Move to continue to, Bruce?
Boy, not without a computer, I'm useless. January, I believe is 22nd.
To January 22nd at
Yes, 22nd at 5:30.
5:30.
Okay.
Second?
Any further discussion about this?
We need a second before we.
Oh, second. Oh, okay. Is there a
Second.
Don seconded it. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote on it. All those in favor of the motion, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. So everybody, no one's against it? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your patience.
Do you want to give him
A letter?
something on the number of feet from a wetland? I don't think
I'd make a motion.
Yeah.
Since it's fresh, it's 5 feet on the north boundary.
Charge it because
on the west.
I'm limited cameras tonight, so I need to actually use the same cameras twice because I've never done before. So I think it's giving me a message I've never seen, which is like, I'm hot, so I refuse
talk to
to.
him. I think that's probably the best way.
Yeah, it's not a big problem, but right, I had it. This is basically ready to go.
Alright. Who we got next?
I'm cutting it fine today.
I'll never get one. It's 3 or 4.
Cameras out all over the place.
Whatever one.
We're up to 3.
It's not fair. That's why we have
No, we go to 9 then. Yeah, you don't have that one.
Alright, how about if we spread this out?
It was crazy.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you did?
Thank you.
Oh, well.
Alright, you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, could we please, we have to shut this again or not? Only if, yeah. Alright, we have our next, sorry, John, you wanna just watch? Our next project is a notice of intent filed by Smith College for the relocation of a tennis court, creation of a synthetic playing field, and the paving of an existing gravel parking lot. Work is proposed to take place in the Riverfront Area. The project's location is College Lane at Smith College or at their athletic fields. I'm sorry, we're late.
Okay, I'm John Robinson, I'm Smith's manager of capital projects.
Okay.
I'm here to answer practically no questions. This is Nathan Collins from Gale Associates. He's the head design professional for this project, and he will be doing a presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Nathan Collins. I'm a project manager with Gale Associates. Just a few things before I go into my presentation. I have the green cards for next submission. Also, just a couple things. Since our submission, we have received a letter from National Heritage depicting that they don't see that the project has any adverse effects on the habitat that's within the area, as well as the project doesn't involve any take of that habitat. I'm assuming that you guys have a copy of that letter.
We do.
In addition to that, we have received a file number and a letter from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. They had a few comments on our submission. Gale Associates received that on December 23rd. Our offices were closed all last week. I have with me tonight response to his letter that was overnighted to him last night for your record. What it includes is a technical memo. I don't know if you want to take one and pass it down, please. A technical letter addressing their initial comments, as well as a revised grading and drainage plan with minor revisions, which I have with me tonight that I will go over, as well as 2 calculations as it relates to TSS removal. Just to go quickly, as John had noted, what the college is looking to do is basically improve their existing athletic facilities to bring them up to standards with other colleges that they play in their conference. Currently, right now, Smith College is the only group in their conference for field hockey and lacrosse that do not play on a surface typical to this. Just briefly to go over existing conditions to orientate the group. This is the bituminous access drive off of West Street. You come in here and enter your compacted gravel parking lot. These are the existing tennis courts with a series of bituminous walkways that bring you to this existing natural turf field. I have highlighted the limit of the wetland. Again, that was delineated by Gale Associates. A copy of the wetland delineation is in the application. You can see there is a small portion of bordering vegetated wetland that stops just north of the existing pedestrian bridge. From there down, it was deemed again by our wetland scientists that it was just high water for riverbank. What we're showing again on this plan, highlighted in pink, is the 100-foot and 100-foot buffer from that bordering vegetated wetland, as well as the 100-foot inner riparian and 200-foot outer riparian zone. Majority of this work is within the Riverfront area. Some other things just to consider real quick in the existing conditions. I've tried to make bold an existing 4-foot chain link fence, as well as some of the existing lighting. The lighting for the field now consists of 8 athletic field light poles that are approximately 35 feet high. What the school's proposing is to create a synthetic all-weather surface to accommodate NCAA level field hockey and women's lacrosse. Because we're accommodating women's lacrosse, that has a width of 210 feet, requiring us to expand upon the existing field that's there. The field that they currently play on does not actually meet NCAA regulations. Because we have to expand it and we're staying away from the existing 4-foot fence, that will remain in place, and we're not encroaching any closer to the wetlands, we have to saw cut and remove one of the existing tennis courts that's there today. The intent is to, because Smith College can't afford to lose that tennis court, we will reconstruct that tennis court in this area, again, outside of any of the resource areas, to accommodate that capacity. In addition, the existing gravel parking lot, because of some of the parking and access issues that the college currently deals with, we're proposing to pave that area. We'll coordinate additional spacing that will be striped, both for ADA and standard parking. In addition, this area here that consists of the existing gravel parking lot and what they call their croquet court will be new parking area with a bus loop to eliminate the current issues that they have with getting buses in and out of that athletic facility. With this construction, we are adding impervious area, again, outside of the resource area. It's approximately 0.7 acres of additional impervious area on the site, which is made up of this parking area. To accommodate, again, that increase in impervious area, we therefore have to meet stormwater regulations. To do that, we've created a small infiltration basin that will act by collecting runoff from this portion of the parking lot. It'll flow over land. Again, we're trying to eliminate any structures in that parking lot. Will flow over land and then over a 25-foot grass filter strip into this infiltration basin that has a total depth of 1 foot and 8 inches. However, the actual depth of water to meet water quality standards will only be 8 inches, at which point it will overflow into a 12-inch pipe that will connect to an existing 24-inch culvert. The synthetic turf field, let me switch to the drainage plan, is constructed with a gravel base that's approximately 9 inches. It varies based on slope. The surface is sloped at 0.5%, and the subgrade is sloped at about 0.75 to 1%, just to help water sheet down. At the base of that stone is a series of flat panel drains. They're basically perforated sock pipes, essentially. Those are spaced 20 feet on center. They'll collect runoff from sequential storms. In your standard storms, your 2-year, 10-year, will be handled with storage inside that gravel base underneath your turf field. And then during the heavier storm events, that water will have an opportunity to enter into these sock pipes and then get into the collection system. We are tying this system in, again, to an existing drain line that outlets into this river. Again, we're not adding any impervious area in that resource area, and all the sediment coming, or lack of sediment coming onto that field won't exist. It's all infiltrates vertically and not over land. The second portion of this parking area will flow, again, overland to a catch basin that will outlet to a 12-inch pipe into a proprietary BMP structure. We typically use a product, Downstream Defender. It'll be a 4-foot diameter structure with a total depth of probably approximately 6 feet. That will, again, overflow in the larger storm events, but to meet stormwater quality, it'll be treated and then overflow again into an existing 18-inch drainage line. What I'd like to do is open up the hearing to questions from the Conservation Commission. I understand. I apologize for the delivery of these 2 plans now, but based on timing and being out for a week, we tried to get it to you guys as quickly as possible.
So I have a question. When I read through this, I looked at I read through the construction of the playing field. It said that you dig down whatever you need, 18 inches or whatever, and you compact the soil, and then you put textile cloth down. So, in reality, how can you tell me how much water is really going to infiltrate down in there? I mean, it says that you wrote that it's not going to be, or that it's not going to be impervious, but I don't know. It's compacted.
It's not impervious. That filter fabric that gets put down is an open filter fabric.
Right, but if you've compacted the soil.
Again, it's not compacted to soil that you would see under pavement. This site does have a little more restrictive soils than a sand base, but we've designed these fields with no under drains at all, and no drainage comes out of that. It all infiltrates.
Really?
Yes.
So why are you putting in a drain here?
Again, because the soil conditions here they're not sand. So we want to make sure during the heavy storm events where, for example, if you, in this time of the year, when you have snow melt and then another rainstorm after that, that the rain from the previous storm that's stored in that stone and may not have the time to recharge has a place to go.
So one of the things that came up in the report too was that there would be save on maintenance costs and fertilizer and water consumption, which comes from the Mill River. I thought those were good things if you didn't have to dump fertilizer on it and everything. But I just wondered how much of a savings is it? How much less fertilizer is going to be used, and how much less water will be used from the Paradise Pond?
Sure. On a well-maintained natural turf field, I don't know what, John, you may be able to
We can get you specific, but I'll back that up after.
Yeah. Right. In terms of the maintenance of a natural turf field, it's not just fertilizer. It's your fertilizers, it's the pesticides, it's routine mowing, it's striping of the field. All of that goes away. Right? The striping is permanent. In terms of the water consumption, a well-maintained natural turf field during the growing seasons, which basically is from April to early fall, if you will, likes to have 1 inch of rain a week, and whether that comes naturally or through an irrigation system. What that equates to over a 90,000 square foot area is probably, again, not knowing it off the top of my head, is probably in the ballpark about 300,000 gallons a year on a natural turf field. And I can get you an exact calculation on it if you'd like.
I don't know. Okay. Those are all the questions. I just, the impermeability, I don't know. That's.
What is the actual surface?
The actual carpet
Yeah.
is constructed of polyethylene fibers that are punched through a backing similar to a geotextile. And then they coat that with a polyurethane for what they refer to as tough bind. And then that is punctured for drainage purposes. The carpet it's a monofilament carpet. They take a series of yarn and punch it through that backing. For a total height, here I believe we're going with a 2-inch, what they call 2-inch pile height. Inside this particular field will be a sand and rubber infill that will go down within that 2-inch pile height. And that gets laid right on top of the subbase.
And you have to put, where I play indoor soccer that has similar turf, and they have to put ground-related kind of rubber on it every so often.
That's the sand, not
sandy rubber stuff.
on an indoor facility. The maintenance is a little different than an outdoor facility. I wouldn't anticipate on the fields that we've done. We haven't had to do any additional top dressing, if you will.
Okay.
That sand and rubber will get installed in the initial construction.
And it should be stay
Correct.
as it is.
Yeah.
So how long does this last before it has to be replaced?
Well, if anyone told you that, they'd be lying. Because this particular product that we're putting down, the oldest field's probably 5 years. The older technology, which is what they refer to as slit film, had a life expectancy of about 12. It's UV degradation that will break this carpet down. Because they do mono, they're able to coat each individual fiber with a UV protectant. Based on that, they anticipate a life of 15 years. I can't tell you how accurate that is. It's based on laboratory testing. But the warranty is 8 years. The industry standard warranty is 8 years.
And after that, it's what, landfill?
It goes to a standard landfill, yeah. We just completed that project in Boston, at Boston University this last summer. But there haven't been many that have had to do it yet. It's a pretty new technology. I think the oldest field was put in '98, and they're still using that one.
So I just have, you guys mind if I go? I have a couple of issues with the stormwater. One actually being is that you have to apply for a stormwater permit from the city. You're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're planning on doing it?
Yes. The application is filled out. We just haven't submitted it yet.
Okay. And also for a planning board permit for lighting, you know that too?
Yep.
Okay, good. You use a Bentley pond pack, I think, for your stormwater calculations. And I don't know the Bentley pond pack system. So I called around it, and actually, I guess maybe we don't use it much here. Nobody I know knows how to use it. And so I tried to download the tutorial, and it was $2,000. So
you use HydroCAD?
We use HydroCAD. So some of the terms are the same, time of concentration,
yep.
Things like that, curve numbers. But so I'm really unable to speak as to whether I think that the stormwater is meets the standards for DEP and for the city of Northampton. And the stormwater manager in Northampton also isn't familiar with this. So neither of us really know. Some things I looked at and it looked very accurate. Other things I was a little bit unsure about, such as this existing outlet coming off of the field. It seems like the peak flows are going to be much higher. Although the entire site, maybe the peak will be lower, but this one outlet will be quite a bit higher, it looks like.
No, actually, the synthetic turf field is where you're able to reduce your peak flows. They're looking through the report, you saw that we have a fairly substantial reduction in peak flow rates.
Right, but that was based on detention in the rubber, which is something I'm not familiar with,
No.
or in the sand and rubber.
Sorry, detention in the stone underneath that carpet, not
Okay.
the sand and rubber.
In the stone underneath.
The void space in that
In
stone.
the void space.
How much are you gonna, I mean, I know the slope's not very high, but how much detention are you gonna get?
We see pretty much 90%.
90% in gravel?
Yes, it's a 3/8 inch blend. I think what we use in our design, I think we try to get a 35% void space that we use for the storage. And what happens is it will drain vertically quickly, but then as it flows laterally on the subgrade that's at a slightly different slope, it has a little less travel path horizontally through the gravel. And as the water comes down and starts to fill up, that's where you start to get the storage. So what happens is your time of concentration is increased significantly from definitely the current field that's there, because the root zone they currently play on is compacted due to overuse. So that's currently flowing overland to a series of catch basins that connect into that same system. And that's how we attenuate the peak flow, is through that process.
So there's no lip, so to speak. If your field is down here, there's no lip that holds it in. And the drainage system will be flush with the bottom of the...
Correct. Those flat panel drains just roll right up.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just had a question on redevelopment. So the comments from DEP asked you about improving conditions under 1058.5, but in your narrative of the notice of intent, you provided a short, but at least it was there, an alternatives analysis.
Correct.
Under 1050, which would seem to be relevant under 1058.4. So, is this? I mean, what is the?
Well, we're calling it a redevelopment.
Both, or?
You could say it's a combination of both. We're even though we're calling it a redevelopment, we are meeting all 10 standards of the Massachusetts stormwater policy. But because of the aspect that we're not changing use, we are adding slightly impervious area, although it's outside of the resource area. The work inside this area is strictly a redevelopment. However, because of the unique characteristics of the synthetic turf field and the system that's underneath it, we are able to achieve compliance with all 10 standards of the stormwater regulations. So that may have been some of the confusion with the gentleman from DEP, and also for the riverfront protection regulations, the narrative that talks exactly about why we think it's a redevelopment may not have been detailed enough, and we tried to do that in the technical letter that we sent to them.
Well, I'm just interested in it because I guess the paths are the only degraded, right, impervious surfaces currently. The field itself, the field area is not impervious, so would not constitute degraded area. And I guess that if it doesn't fall under 1058.5 as redevelopment, then you've actually got a higher burden, because then you have to go into a more in-depth alternatives analysis than I saw in the notice of intent.
Right. The redevelopment would be a previously disturbed impervious surface. And it lists what qualifies as
right.
impervious.
I mean, I guess that the site, if the site is broadly defined, it does contain some impervious surfaces, but I was just confused by the presentation of the alternatives analysis. It seemed like even the applicant was, or the applicant was to a certain extent admitting that this was, or stating that this was not redevelopment, but actually would fall under 1058.4. So.
Right. The reason why the development alternatives was really more part of a master plan that we had done previously. It wasn't specifically related to the fact that there was work within the riverfront protection area. We had just included that to let them know that the process had taken place.
Okay.
You have soil tests for the infiltration area and where the defender is going. You have groundwater.
The defender does not leach. It's an internal system. It's not a leaching basin.
Right.
In terms of per test for this area, we can get those right.
Okay. We just have issues with those going in, or at least proposed, and then we hit groundwater. They float basically,
Yeah.
And then when people come back and ask for amendments to put something different in, basically. And also for the infiltration basin, we have those, just to so we can figure out where how
We
far above
don't have
groundwater.
one directly in that basin, but we can certainly perform off there.
Okay.
Are there any comments from any other commissioners? And then, I'll get to any other commissioners? Okay. Yes, sir. Please be sure to state your name.
I'm Owen Freeman Daniels. You guys are getting rid of the relocate course?
Yes, we are. It's unfortunately, shall we say, a needed change. There's been some consternation on some people for the loss of the court. It's one of these things that, for the future build, the whole athletic facility is something we've got to do.
Any other
Well,
comments?
actually, let me add on to that. So is this 3/4 mile cinder track still gonna encircle?
Okay. That is, we don't.
As a runner in the neighborhood, that's good to know.
No, thank you. No, we are maintaining that. Do you want it strike? No, we aren't going.
It sounds like there aren't any other comments. Downey, do you have any other comments?
I just would note that there must be an improvement in the riverfront area, and I'm just wondering if if the commission is satisfied with what's laid out in the letter as being an improvement, given the expansion of the playing surface and
Pave parking area.
yeah, right. Well,
That's outside of the riverfront,
Yeah.
the parking lot.
Yeah. Although it's going to end up in the river. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. What would their alternatives analysis look like if they redid it?
They wouldn't have to. Because a portion of the riverfront area is degraded, which I don't have. There is an existing concrete path along the riverfront. So if you have a portion, my understanding is, then that riverfront area contains degraded areas. And you may consider it redevelopment. It doesn't all have to be paved. So since they are within 100 feet, then that puts them into. And Bruce, you can stop me if I'm.
You're okay.
1058.5. But even if they're in redevelopment, they need to improve the riverfront area from what it is right now. So that's it.
Well, maybe they need to say how much fertilizer actually is not going to go into the river, or maybe they need to say what they're going to do with this thing when it degrades enough that they have to replace it. Since Smith is trying to be sustainable.
What if they were to capture the water coming off of this 12-inch pipe off of the 90,000 square foot field and use it to water the soccer field next door, which again reduces flows to the river during, maybe not so much during huge events, because that's just going to fill up and overflow, but at least during small events it reduces the flow. And
well, if I already have, I would say I already have a cistern right there. You know, it's Paradise Pond. But
yeah, well, Paradise Pond also has endangered species in it, and reusing the water off of this is, to me, makes sense, but that seems like an improvement in the riverfront. So you're basically taking the water that comes off of a new, somewhat more impervious surface, reusing it on the less impervious surface, and I don't know, that's an option. I'm just trying to think of ways to meet the standards and would look good for Smith, and it's fairly inexpensive to put a cistern in. Well, you would put it under the walkway or something like that. Yeah, it's just a suggestion. My other suggestion is that maybe we, if it's continued, then we ask the applicant to submit a stormwater application to the city, and then.
Well, we have to continue it on. I mean, we have to if they need to.
Right.
They need to do just that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they don't have to. You could accept it and wait. But it doesn't make sense to accept it and then potentially have the stormwater manager say, well, this needs to be changed slightly.
Well, that's what we just gave Mr. Harrity. I'm not going to accept it.
Right. So that way that gives the stormwater manager a chance to go through and we both looked at it, it looks good, and you know the calculations better than I do. But
yeah, I'll let the chief civil engineer at Gale Associates. We used to use HydroCam, and he came in and said, "Let's go to Montgomery."
No, Bentley's a nice system.
No one knows it.
Just we don't have it. You know, they make a lot of great.
You're not the first conservation commission that is.
You probably use a map too.
Yeah.
So let's. Are there any other comments or questions?
I just think otherwise it's a good project. I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so how about a motion to continue?
Move to continue to.
Is 2 weeks enough to do all this?
Oh yeah, the permit's filled out. We just have to submit it.
I know, but is 2 weeks enough for? I can't remember the guy's name.
Doug, I think so.
Okay, I mean I don't. Otherwise they have to come back.
And he may have some questions for you. I mean, but otherwise, I think
all right.
Doug can review it in 2 weeks.
Second.
Okay.
What do we?
What was the date, I'm sorry?
What is it, January 22nd?
22nd.
At what time?
At, well, the first one is at 5:30, so you want to make it at 6 o'clock?
Okay, January 22nd.
No, we haven't made it so far.
Okay.
And just to add also, your the test pit information you're looking for that infiltration area again.
Yeah.
For
The stormwater manager will want that too.
Okay.
So should we wait? I mean, is that?
I don't know how quickly you guys can get that. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, the only test pit we haven't actually performed is this one yet because it's right in the middle of the gravel parking lot. But we should be able to get out there.
Let's put it, if there's any issue, we'll get right back to you in reference to the time.
Well, yeah, it's
we'll send a letter and ask for continuance.
Yeah. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
If this thing goes in 3 o'clock, one of us should go to watch the local that one is the planning board's meeting now, but the zero lot line thing comes up.
Previously developed Riverfront Area contains areas of grade prior to August 7th, 1996.
Wow.
How are you?
My goodness. We had it on film.
How are you? So you got the message. You were, I think your friend was in the park.
Yes, I thought that was somebody waiting for you, so that's how we could walk to your house. And you had brought that along, and then you were going around the neighborhood, and it was good traffic lights.
It could be a little bit just muscling over 4 gigabytes of video onto the computer.
All right, Sue left.
I won't do that.
I thought you were going to like go. That would be very sad. Don't get me angry. Good, how are you? Oh, these are the cameras. I only have 2, so I've got to clear them off.
What choice is anybody doesn't make? Time on your hands. Make your choice.
Your mom. She's the best first grade teacher. No, you're
evolving the system. This is taking, this is clearing the video, transferring it from here to using it again.
Or, what is it, say 10%, right, oh my goodness, side or 5,000 square feet. Yeah, it's just all. Good.
Do you think we should see somebody over at the,
Yeah, at 8, I was talking to Lisa about it, at 8, yeah, some people go right in here. It's a tiny one, but anything is possible.
Yeah, okay.
Action cut. In the final video, I'm seeing it out.
Because you could have a 5.
I'm learning it's better to go on. You have extra.
We know how to do it. Be a lot of trial.
But you could argue the drainage is not impervious. People will try to go it's arguable. We're waiting for
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could say that's an increase. I think that, personally, I think that holding water on site is large. I heard a bunch of crickets on that one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Actually, you're holding water on site on the Riverfront area?
You and I have.
Yeah, I received water instead of pumping from an area of the neighboring stations. That seems like an improvement.
No, it doesn't. As an impact.
Yeah, we're just arguing straight that it would be improvement. Water one section.
Okay, let's get going here. Sorry that we're late. We're here to hear now about the continuation of a notice of intent filed by Tofino Associates and Northern Ave Homes Incorporated for the construction of 25 dwelling units, associated roadways, parking areas, driveways, sidewalks, utilities, landscaping, stormwater management system. The project is proposed to take place in a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands, and the project is located on Northern Avenue. Okay, so we left it last saying that, and asked to have you move the stormwater detention basin past the 35-foot no disturb zone.
And we don't have the plans ready yet.
Okay.
We didn't, when you folks wanted to do a site visit, have the stakes in the field. We have them in the field now, so I would like to schedule a site visit.
Okay.
But I would like to continue the hearing to the next meeting, and we will then have revised plans for you, ready to go, and we will have them in advance so you can look at them beforehand.
Okay.
When will they be ready?
They should be ready next week.
Is that early enough to send them out?
What's your deadline date?
Yes, I have to send them out by next Friday.
When's the next hearing?
All right.
22nd.
All right, so can we schedule a site visit right now? Can we do that, or
We can try.
no? Well, I mean, we're all here. I can see all your charming faces. So, is there a time that works? It was magical the time you're out there. So. You know, it's pretty surprising.
Almost all of us showed up.
Yeah, we actually got there.
On Monday.
Oh, So anyway, is Monday, next Monday? I might not be there if it's next Monday, but you guys can survive. Yeah.
I'll take photos.
But if everybody else can, that's okay.
Morning?
Same time, 1 o'clock?
I've got a Economic Development Commission at 1 o'clock.
Noon?
Can't,
When do you get off
yeah,
work?
no.
I'm booked from 11:30 on. After the morning.
I mean, if you can't do it, I'll do
After
it
the
by
afternoon,
email,
too.
but, or Bruce will do it by email, but I just didn't know.
Monday morning works for me.
Monday morning? Sue, when are you available?
11:30, 11:45.
What about it, like 2
Yep, 2 fine.
or 3 or whatever? I don't
3,
know.
if it gets out at 2:30, I'll be there at 2:45.
Okay, 3. 3? 3. Monday. I don't know what day that is, what actual calendar day that is.
Monday's the 12th.
Thank you. 12. All right, will that work?
The 12th, not the 19th.
Okay. All right, we'll do it. And I guess we need a motion to continue.
Move to continue to January 20th.
Wait, did you want to say?
I actually,
Excuse me.
maybe it doesn't matter, but you're gonna have the site visit without the new plans.
It'd be good to have some new plans.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to tell you how I'm supposed to look at them tomorrow, but I haven't got them from the so.
Right, if you're not gonna have
The mayor and I
do you wanna make it Monday,
Can we do it the
19th?
The staked areas are going to be the wetlands boundary and the corners of the proposed buildings?
And the edges, the top edge of the detention areas, and any outfall structures.
So do you want to do it at the same time? You don't want to do it earlier? So you don't have that meeting?
No, I'm more flexible on the 19th.
No, 1 o'clock,
1 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay.
The 19th.
Sorry. Good thinking. Thank you, Bruce. Okay.
Okay, move to continue to January 22nd at...
Hold on.
Hang on.
6:30.
6:30? How about 6:45?
I don't think that Smith College project will take too long.
Doug, are you on the planning board agenda that night?
Yes, I believe so. So it's a double.
All right,
Do everything at once.
is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Did you have something?
Just with regard to the view.
Would you like to please state your name?
Oh, yes, sure. Alan Seawald. I'm attorney for the neighborhood residents. And it may be important and it may be relevant to take a look at the house that is located on, that Mr. Cole owns on the site also because the reports that we get is that there's been flooding in that basement. It may be something that'd be worthwhile for the commission to look at.
Adam?
Well, there's a number of people here, including myself, who'd like to make some comments. I hope we get a chance to do that tonight.
Does that have to do with the motion?
Well, I just want to make sure that by moving it, you're not going to close the public comment.
Well, I don't think it's,
The problem is Mason's not here now, and that therefore we'd be reducing our board if we open it this time.
Mason's not here, and we don't have a set of current plans that anyone could make a comment on. So the commission can't make any kind of dialogue there, and 2, it may or may not be valid.
Right. Let's forego for tonight. And you can write to me. People have been writing to me. When people write to me, I send it out to the commission.
That's right, we all read it.
But I mean, it's not going to
Can we make comments on things that actually don't have to do with a specific plan, but just have to do with wetlands and stormwater management? Again, my problem is with the fact that by statute, and you can correct me if I'm wrong,
No.
once you reduce, if Mason's not here for one of the hearings, then I reduce the people who can vote
Depends
by
on
that
whether
person.
the city has accepted the statute allowing one session to be missed.
They haven't.
And if the session goes forward and somebody's missed evidentiary hearing, he or she is out.
We are, but we're dropping people. If we take comments, we're dropping
We
people.
lost this.
Yeah.
So we would have 4 people next time, just enough. If they did that. I don't really think that's.
Let's not do it.
No.
It's too, someone could get sick and then you're done. Okay, all right. Any other discussion about this continuation? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right, so we'll see you at 1 o'clock, the 19th of January at the cul-de-sac.
And 6:30 on the 22nd?
6:30 on the 22nd.
I have one last question, forgive me. Is the public allowed to join the site visit?
It depends on the owner of the property, whether they want to allow them, and usually if they do allow, it's just a couple representatives, not everybody who wants to show up. But that's up to the owner of the property.
I'm going to leave it up to the commission whether they want to do that or not. You know,
I really don't mind.
I don't object.
Okay, I don't mind. It would be a little bit awkward, 50 people.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
But it's,
Weeping cookie.
How many people? 2.
Yeah. We would give you a tour of our wet basement. And mold.
So if you want to do that, yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay. All right, very good. I'm sorry we were late. Thank you for coming.